couple of questions which have been stimulated by the conversation today, which have been very helpful to me. The first one basically goes to Judge Freeh, your remarks that we are a nation that is a rule of law nation, and we're very proud of that. We're a free, democratic, open society. And I would be interested to know what you and Ms. White and Mr. Bellarmine, Dr. Bellarmine, would say to the question that we play by the Marquis of Queensberry rules and the other guys don't. Is there a simple way that we can deal with that?
Not a simple way, Mr. Chairman.
How far can we go, understanding that we're getting hit below the belt, but we will not hit below the belt?
The rules are different depending on what system we're using, I think, to some extent. If you're talking about the criminal justice system, I'd be the last person to advocate, treating a terrorist defendant any differently than any other kind of defendant, despite the seriousness of their crimes and the difficulties in doing that, or we, dilute our own system.
Well, I would put it a little differently. Let's suppose somebody comes into this country with malice aforethought, and they're going to do a dastardly deed such as the World Trade Towers, but they don't break any laws. And they don't have any fear of the death penalty because that's their reward. How do we make our law enforcement and our intelligence defensive capabilities work to figure out how we can stop something before it happens in a case like that? What authority do we have and what capability do we have here in a free, democratic, open society to say, gee, we're the thought police, we think you're thinking of doing something bad, you're treated as an American person here, and we're a little concerned about that.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with Mary Jo White that we got to talk about what plane we're operating on. If it's an immigration issue and a border issue, the person doesn't have the same rights, obviously, and the same ability to enter and remain in the United States than a U.S. person would have. Should we use a law enforcement agency to operate, to use your phrase, as a thought police or as a preventive police? My view is no. If we have a suspected terrorist who has in his mind the plans to commit an attack, should we allow the FBI to use whatever measures possible or available to get that person to disclose that information? Many countries, as you know, do that. Do you want your FBI agents doing that? And then who chooses the cases where that technique is used and not used? These are huge and difficult issues. I think I come back to the FBI, at least, being part of the Department of Justice and being an agency that adheres to the rule of law. Now, the Congress, the courts, the Attorney General, and the President can change those rules from time to time. I'm looking here at the draft of the new Attorney General guidelines on general crimes and domestic terrorism enterprise investigations. Completely different document than we operated under for 8 years. That's fine, as long as those rules are changed in course with the rule of law and they're clarified, and then you and others scrutinize how they're operating.
Well, the reason I was asking is because that's exactly the process we're in, is scrutinizing those kinds of questions now. I mean, we're hung up on the question of how do you deal with these people once you catch them and do the document exploitation? Are they detainees, war criminals, depending, et cetera, all the combination of citizenship that can be involved in all of that? How far can you go asking questions, and does it depend on an urgency that something horrible is going to happen if you don't get the right question asked soon from the person who has that answer and doesn't want to give it to you? Those are very difficult questions.
They're extremely difficult.
And we're looking for ways to legislate a solution or point to the executive branch to say, do something. You're the people who have had that experience. Dr. Pilar, did you have any point on it?
Just if we can catch the person overseas first, there are things that we would do there or have our foreign partners do, still short of committing anything that would be a human rights abuse or that would offend our values in those respects, but would still not be the sort of thing that the FBI or a U.S. attorney would do here. Things that would fit under the category of, shall we say, harassment, or even just a knock on the door by the local police or security service is enough, and we have seen it happen in the past, to break up an incipient terrorist operation. Terrorists don't like to be found out. They don't like to be suspected. And so there are a lot of things that we can encourage our foreign partners to do just under mere suspicion that perhaps the FBI could not do if it were here in the United States.
I would just simply, as my time is up, I was to say, is it right for us to do get a third party to do what we ourselves would not do?
Again, I would emphasize I'm talking about things that fall short of anything that would be a human rights abuse or things contrary to our values, but they would still fall in the harassment category.
Not to be contentious, but let's just suppose we talked about, we know where your family is.
That's a possibility.
That's a possibility.
As a mind game.
Well, it's exactly the kind of question. I mean, defining terror, defining all of these words that we are going into a new global time. We know who we are, we think. How do we act in the world to best represent who we really are? That's sort of the question we're wrestling with.
Well, there are a lot of things we can do that I would categorize as mind games. No use of force, no use of violence, certainly no abuse of human rights, but can be and have been effective as a disruptive tool with terrorist infrastructures overseas.
Mr. Chairman, again, I think it goes to the earlier discussion and point that was made here by, I think, every witness today. You know, what world are we in? If we are fighting a war, you know, we're using different rules and different remedies. If we're conducting a criminal investigation, we're doing something else. But you know, the tip of the spear of the country's counterterrorism policy is not found in an arrest warrant from a grand jury in New York. It's going to be found at the tip of a TLAM missile in that category of threat. So we just have to know what world we're in and then follow those rules.
Well, again, my time has expired.